isn't it? But in actual fact, I should trim this. Right, now it looks like it might be a bit more plate-like. So we need to sort of get that dried out. So we've got to turn the motor off. There we are. Now that looks, apart from my thumbprints, it looks like a plate. But I suspect it doesn't look as good as this one, which was done earlier. And this is one that's dried out and is ready to be put in the kiln and fired.
All they needed now was some way of decorating plates faster and cheaper than before.
How did decorated crockery become available to the masses?
Well, basically, hand painting was the original process, but it was slow, it was expensive, it was only for the very rich. So some technique had to be developed by which patterns could be reproduced quickly and accurately and obviously cheaply. And that's where you come into printing.
What brought that about? What made that happen?
Well, there's lots of different things. There was a lot of competition from China brought in from China, which was decorated with very cheap labour. So obviously in Europe we had to start producing things faster.
Plates tend to be funny shaped, lumpy things. How could you possibly print onto that kind of surface?
Well, that's why we call it transfer printing, because you print from a copper sheet onto tissue paper. Tissue paper obviously is soft and very flexible, and you can then make that conform to the shapes of the plate or cup or whatever you're using.
To combat Chinese imports, many patterns adopted a pseudo-oriental style. One of the most famous is the willow pattern, introduced in 1780 and still with us today. It's a favourite among collectors, and there's a legend attached to it involving a story of doomed love between a lowly clerk and a mandarin's daughter. There's banishment, rich merchants, palaces, fleeing from danger, and death for the lovers who were finally reunited as lovebirds sent by the gods.
But the story's not true. It's simply a bit of 19th century spin invented by a salesman.
By the 20th century, our kitchens were full of the most familiar sights.
This 1930s setup here is really the start of the fitting kitchens we might know today, really. But even though this is quite nicely designed and everything, most homes would have a wooden table like this to eat from, and it needs to be kept clean for hygiene's sake. Now that means work. We've got a nice modern kitchen here, but we still have to go to get it clean. You can see all that dirt would get right inside the grain. But we have a secret weapon, and that's the formal tablecloth. This isn't just for Sunday best, this is also to protect the table. Saves a lot of messing, really. So let's give it a go. Whoa! Now look at this. Now here's something I've wanted to do for a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, before your very eyes, I will reveal to you the wondrous material that changed our kitchen lives forever. I give you Formica!
A hard-wearing man-made material, Formica was typical of the leaps being made in kitchen design. It didn't chip like enamel, it wasn't porous like wood, and it felt modern. It was sold as part of the brave new world of the home of 50s Britain and changed the appearance of the kitchen forever.
Formica brought us colour, convenience, and cleanliness. Kitchens today still have all the appliances they ever had, but they've all been incorporated both visually and ergonomically into a complete culinary workshop.
And that's really all that kitchens are, a workshop for food. Instead of chisels, you've got vegetable peelers. Instead of corkscrews, drills. In fact, it was planing wood that sparked the idea for the cheese grater. All the earliest graters are is pieces of metal with a nail hammered through. And food mixers are the equivalent of the power tool.
Mixing ingredients for cooking by hand is hard, repetitive work. So it was an area that was ripe for some sort of mechanisation. And in the early 1900s, food mixers were introduced.
The first food mixers were inspired by visiting a bakery, but they came of age when designers came up with the Sunbeam, an American machine with multiple attachments that could chop, mince and mix. What's more, the whisk not only mixed the food, but spun the ball as well, in what became known as the planetary action, which ensured a thorough mix.
When I'm designing a new product, I like to take familiar concepts and flip them right on their head. And that's what's happened here. Instead of the attachments moving, it's the ball that provides the power for the attachments. The ball's whizzing round and you can bring in things like this whisk, put a jug on there and mix a few things. I love things like this where somebody's tried something different and you can almost see the thought processes at work. Mixers like this are still in use in industrial kitchens, but they just didn't catch on in the home.
The first all-British mixer was the Kenwood Chef. Ken Wood had been to America in the Merchant Navy and pretty much copied their approach. This 1960s model features an evolution of the planetary action. So the bowl no longer needed to spin to get a good mix. It became one of the must-have accessories of the 60s.
The next major breakthrough in the science of cooking came from technology developed directly for the defence of this land. Indirectly. But actually, it was all thanks to one of these.
In 1946, Dr. Percy Spencer was working with radar technology when he noticed that the bar of chocolate in his pocket had melted. The microwave oven was born. And with it came a vast array of processed and packaged foods. The kitchen need no longer be a place of work. The ultimate in convenience cooking had come of age.
Oh, look at that. Lancashire hot pot, piping hot. Ow, and it is hot. And in less time than it takes to peel the potatoes. Oh, great.
We've come a long way since leaving our Stone Age caves. Or have we?
Of course, not every development in food and cooking is a giant leap forward. You can't get more basic than a barbecue. And barbecues have never been as popular as they are today. I bet Stone Age man would have felt right at home here.